This is a story about boys. A simple story that kind of tells itself in their faces. Smiling faces. Warm faces. Friendly faces. But on guard. And wondering. Questioning. It is also about a special kind of race. To help promote a better understanding between officer and boy, the police departments of 20 different cities organized the Peace Officers Car Club Association. As our first project, we decided to hold a special kind of race. We called in the famous racing driver Ralph De Palma to help us put the show on the road. As the juvenile officer of our town, I explained the race to our police department. It was going to be a safety and economy run, not a speed race. But it wasn't going to be any cinch either. We had staked out a grueling 2-day, 663-mile route. Starting in the city of Linwood, California, and moving east to San Bernardino. Then north, cutting through the mountains at Cajon Pass to Barstow for refueling. Then out across the Joshua Tree Desert to Las Vegas, Nevada. Up to the Hoover Dam and back home again. Well, whatever doubts I had that the kids would go for this race were dispelled during my meetings with the Capri Car Club, selected to represent our town in the run because of their excellent safety record. Their enthusiasm was wonderful. They were taking the race seriously. They wanted to be sure they had the right driver and observer. As one member put it, this was no race for a character with a hot temper or a heavy foot. And they were choosing in a genuine democratic way. The people's choice turned out to be Dick Owens, observer, and Jim Hummer, driver. Well, it wasn't very long after that before the Capri Car Club emblem went onto the car, and Jim and I went down to the shop. Here, Jim was introduced to the mechanic and looked on as the final adjustments were being made. The last-minute tune-up, the carburetor check, the distributor points, compression, and of course the brakes. Then the dealer turned the key and the car over to Jim and wished him the best of luck. And Jim headed out for the official refueling station to fill up with gas. Gas that was going to play the very important role of the measuring rod in figuring out the winner. As you know, it takes more gas to move a heavy car than a light one. So to make things fair for all the cars participating in the economy run, the ton mileage formula was going to be used. To get ton miles per gallon, you take the weight of your car in tons, multiply that by the number of miles that you travel, and then divide by the gallons of gas that you use. Here, for the first time, I could see how well what we had done in our town had been repeated by police departments in the other cities. And here I got my first good look at the other cars. Funny, as I told you, I'm a juvenile officer, but no matter how long I work with teenage kids, I'm always being surprised by their fantastic imaginations. Take the names of their clubs, the bright, vibrant colors of their cars and jackets. To me, these were all the clue to the spirit with which they were entering this safety and economy run. They brought to it all the fresh and exciting qualities of youth. And when it came to weighing the cars in, you'd be surprised to see how quickly they could become serious. You'd think the cars were made of gold the way they kept tab on the scales. As I looked over the 15 cars that day before the race, I held back my enthusiasm a little. I knew teenage kids were unpredictable. For what appeared no reason at all, they could play havoc with the law. We still had some rough humps to get over before we could say that our approach was right. But we weren't going to keep them in a glass cage. We were going to show them the road, teach them the right way to drive on it, give them all the facts, then give them the wheel, and let them shoulder their own responsibility. Now, we could only wait and see. At 6 o'clock the next morning, there was a light mist. The first car was off on the run, and another car followed it every 2 minutes. By 6:30, the last car was away and the sun was still down. If there had been a question in anyone's mind as to how exciting this race was going to be, he'd have his answers soon. At Cajon Pass, the fog was socked in. Heavy fog and mountain driving, as tough a combination of gas-eating driving conditions as you can get. And the boys had to average a realistic 35 miles an hour for the course in order to come in on time. And they had to conform to all the traffic laws and regulations in the 2 states of California and Nevada, their counties and their towns. The number 1 car, the capital letter Wise Men from Whittier, lay for a long time behind a tanker before the road-wise, courteous truck driver signaled that there was a safe, clear road ahead. Though the weather broke on the Barstow side of the mountain pass, these boys hadn't been out there more than an hour when they all knew that a safety and economy run was a special kind of a race, a mighty tough kind at that. And if you had any doubt as to whether the boys would be getting a real kick out of the run, you could read your answer, as I did, traveling up and down the line of gaily colored cars in the faces of the drivers. Like Don Pratt of the Buccaneers, or his observer, Roland Ellis from the Falcons, riding beside him. All you had to do was look at the faces behind the wheels. Remember, this is not only a story about officer, boy, and automobile. It's also about the road. These teenage kids were watching it like hawks, doing a job of navigation just like the boy Mark Twain did on the Mississippi River. For the time being, the road was straight and clear. Maximum safety speed, 55 miles per hour. They were moving on to Barstow. The road, like the river, had its branches. They converged at Barstow, and so did the traffic. It thickened, and the cars crawled like flies on sticky paper. You couldn't even get into 3rd gear, and the gas was burning up fast. As Malalka, the driver for the Deciders, put it, that was all part of the game, the nerve test. Imagine getting a thrill at 15 miles an hour, sweating out gas. De Palma, who had thousands of checkered flags waved at him in a period of 50 years of association with racing driving, was now behind the flag himself and loving it. Flagging them down, pointing the turn into the refueling station, clocking the kids in. The wide spread between the cars on the road narrowed, and they piled into the station bumper to bumper. I was waiting anxiously for Jim Hummer to come in, and I kind of choked up a little when I saw him make the turn. No sooner had he shut off his motor than I found him coming toward me with a broad grin on his face. The word about the first annual Youth Safety and Economy Run had spread to boys in the car clubs all along the route. Here in Barstow, the local car club boys came out to play host. Their hospitality was terrific. The moment a motor was killed, they hopped on the car and shoved it on into the station, saving every ounce of gas. The official clocker gave each driver his time. The Barstow Car Club boys lined up the cars for the next starting position. Then they all joined us for lunch. An hour for lunch was only a brief respite for a two-day haul. Not much time to relax the building tension. But I don't think Jim or I will ever forget that crazy-looking rag doll at Barstow. Soon we were back to the serious business of the race. Again, we were off on the run. Next stop, Las Vegas, Nevada. As we moved through Barstow Bridge, the loud tensions that had gathered in our nerves on the first lap kind of settled down now to a soft, steady hum. And the road, like the river, flowed through beautiful country. The officials whose job it was to patrol the roads, mark the turns, check on possible violations, were members of the Peace Officers Car Club. Their faces were smiling too, beginning to feel mighty proud of their first project. No trouble so far,